I wanted to go over primary source, non-moral nature. Now that you've had an opportunity to read over it, digest it, for lack of a better word, I think this is an excellent essay. I think that the structure of it is amazing with its introduction, uh, informing the reader what the basis of the argument's going to be, giving all of the necessary background and information, establishing a status quo, and building up to the thesis. This has a delayed thesis, which is extremely effective. You can technically put a thesis anywhere you want in a paper. It has to be organic. And if you think the best method of persuasion is a construction that develops all of the information necessary and then puts the thesis at the end, you can do that. It really is about the rhetorical decisions that you're making as you construct your paper. I wanted to go over this just basically in kind of explaining how I look at it and see it and the areas that I think are kind of interesting. Excuse me. We start out, we have the Bridgewater Treatise and the William Buckland. This is establishing natural theology, right? Um, Gould's giving Buckland's defense of carnivorous races, and he does it without editorializing. He is using it as a foil, as a counter argument, and he's giving you the summary without saying, here's where I find fault with it. When you use a counter argument that you're going to be addressing, it's important that you give it its due diligence. Display that as strongly as it can be put. And then when you go against it, it'll be much more compelling. So, what we have here is a discussion of if God is benevolent, why does nature contain suffering? Buckland resolves predation as part of God's plan. It limits suffering, it increases net pleasure of the carnivore, I suppose. Anyway, we're establishing a status quo belief here that nature reflects moral goodness, that nature is morally instructive. This is extremely important for Gould's point. You can look at Gould and say, well, he didn't really come up with anything. He's going to get to Darwin. Darwin pretty much echoes his sentiment. And all he's done is kind of put things together. He has put things together and he's created a formalized argument utilizing Darwin and kind of extending it to anybody who might say, well, I think we can find a lot of instructive, morally instructive things within our nature. And he's saying, I don't think so. Not if you're really going to consider it honestly. And that's when he looks at the complication. And with this complication, he transitions specifically into parasitism. He even utilizes the alien film, something most people have seen, gives us some topos, right? Some common discussion thread where we can look at that and go, oh my gosh, I remember that. And that was disgusting. It was terrible, right? We get into the idea of the ichneumon fly. He's going to give us all of the information about this. He established this is not an anomaly. It's important in this argument to use this. This is typical. You want to make sure that when you have these examples, it's not a one-off. It's not just some random thing. There are thousands of wasps that fall into the category of the ichneumon fly that do the same type of parasitism. And it's important to really understand that. In giving this, he really highlights the efficiency of the ichneumon wasp, and he avoids moralizing even with that. And at the same time, he's giving an emotional response or pulling an emotional response from us. We can look at that and think, man, I would really hate to have a parasite inside me, keeping me alive, not touching my vital organs, but eating everything else, keeping me absolutely terrified, terrorized, and in pain the entire time. So he does a good job again of just laying that out there and getting us to kind of feel something for that. And it's funny because he does it, and I instantly empathize or sympathize with that. And yet he's kind of giving us this idea that it's very dangerous to have anthropomorphic thoughts when you're looking at nature. So he goes about 3 pages from Reverend Kirby William and highlighting those different issues and saying that it's really an interpretive failure. It's an interpretive failure in regards to intellectual knowledge, emotional language, And really, you're looking at two basic themes, either the struggle of prey or the ruthless efficiency of parasites. At one point, he even evokes motherhood, which is kind of interesting. Now, he's doing this in a way that he can deal with counter arguments again. We're still getting into that because people would still have um, looking at the parasitism and say, yeah, but now when you're dealing with it, he's giving other people's counter arguments to the parasitism. There's three ways you can deal with a counter argument, right? You can either agree with it, you can refute it, or you can mitigate it. And that's exactly what he does with it. He says, Lyle's example, just accept it. He's like, yeah, it is absolutely cruel, but caterpillars are a nuisance and they're going to destroy the field. So it's important that God put this wasp down here to take care of them. Um, you also get Kirby who kind of refutes it and says, the mother's love is really what's being instructive. You can't tell me that there's no moral language or moral lesson within nature when you see the maternal love of the ichneumon wasp's mother or ichneumon fly's mother as she lovingly and carefully embeds her youngin into this caterpillar's belly. Then you can mitigate it. Mivart, who has a denial or minimalization of the pain. So the three strategies again: you accept it, you refute it, or you just mitigate it. It's not that bad. He brings in Darwin. Now, why would he frame it with Darwin? Right? Is this an appeal to authority? Is this a fallacy? Or is Darwin like the godfather of science that refutes religion? You can think about that. The theory of evolution was certainly hotly contested. It led to the Scopes monkey trial. So it could be that kind of soft appeal, but it's certainly something to consider. Darwin pretty much echoes everything that he has said, right? He had it with even more passion. He is saying, yeah, this is terrible. I can't believe that nature actually has this. We get into the actual thesis, and I would argue that it's right here. Our failure to discern a universal good does not record any lack of insight or ingenuity, but merely demonstrates that nature contains no moral messages framed in human terms. There's no moral messages within nature. That's what he's saying. He does end this with a Socratic concession, saying, I feel most deeply that the whole subject is too profound for human intellect. A dog might as well speculate on the mind of Newton. Let each man hope and believe what he can. He's saying, I don't know everything, but he's not backing off of his argument. He's looking at it pretty clearly and saying, this is just something that you cannot find within nature. So I hope that helps.